Good morning, you beautiful bunch of Fockers, and welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It's Tuesday, December 9th. Time for some Power Hour. I see Bruce is here with us. And oh, look, Eric showed up for work this week. Let's jump in and get started. Good morning, guys.
Good morning, Kevin.
Morning, Kevin.
Oh, you are really here. How was your vacation?
I am. Not long enough. It was pretty good, though.
Yeah, good.
I enjoyed some time.
What's the best thing that happened during your time off?
Well, a couple things. First thing was today's my dad's birthday. He's 86 years young.
Congratulations to him.
Yeah, he's had a rough life raising me. I can vouch for that personally. But, my oldest son shot a buck in archery, so he decided not to go to camp this year. And my cousin came up from Virginia, who's also my dad's best friend, and I got to drive my dad to camp for the first time in probably 10 years, just him and I. So we got about 3 hours in the truck together, just alone, just bullshitting.
Nice.
Hanging out. It was good.
Yeah,
Yep.
I like that. All right. Well, it does sound like a good time.
It was. Yeah, we had a lot of fun up there. I didn't see anything. Didn't really care, though. It was freezing cold. It's cold
really?
today.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I saw
5
that.
degrees.
I saw that last night. I was looking at Ohio, and it was like 7 degrees.
Yeah, it was chilly. It's still cold out there now, actually. I could use some warmer weather.
Yeah, it's been very mild here as far as temperature, but last year, this time was kind of dry for us. This year's the opposite. We're just getting soaked. It is just, normally it's misty and a little rainy and rains on and off here and there. This has been like steady rain for a couple days. We're already seeing some landslides too. Remember several years ago in the Gorge, we had that big Eagle Creek fire, went on the whole summer. Didn't end until winter. Well into winter when it finally rains enough to put them out. I mean, all they really do with fires like that, especially in the Gorge, because it's almost impossible to fight them in the Gorge with the terrain. They just keep them away from structures and towns and then let them burn till winter gets here and they go out. But all through the Gorge, that took out so many trees, and each year you see more and more of those areas that look dead. The next year after it happened, you couldn't see much difference. You could tell some of the trees weren't as green when you're looking off in the distance. Every year, more and more of those trees completely die and fall over, and you see it more. It's surprising how long that takes. But now we're seeing some landslides when we get rain like this.
That's crazy. That reminded me of that one town, I want to say it's in Pennsylvania, that the coal mine caught fire like 60 years ago, and it's still burning underneath the town. Most of the residents have evacuated or left on their own.
Yeah.
But they just let it burn.
Yeah.
They can't get it out.
If you've ever been in Florida, when I forget what year it was, but I was still living there, they closed I-95 for several weeks because of smoke. And the crazy thing was, you wouldn't see the fires. They burn underground. There's so much organic material in the soil in Florida because with all the heat and the humidity, things break down so fast. So the soil is more organic material, leaves, twigs, all that stuff, not so much dirt. And if you get a really dry summer, the water table drops enough that the stuff up near the surface dries out, and a lightning strike starts the fire underground, and it just keeps burning, and it just rolls smoke out everywhere.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and they'll burn for months like that underground.
Wow.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Scary in a way, too.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. All right, Bruce, what do you got this week?
Well, being I was in Saxonburg for our Christmas party for last weekend. It reminded me of just how cold it can be up north. And what I used to do to stay warm whenever I was working on trucks and didn't have a garage, or I was at somebody else's garage. And so I wanted to touch on a couple of those ways and a couple of the ways that you can makeshift a temporary shelter to put your truck in to stay out of the wind and the cold. And the first one, and I found this one to be very ingenious, was a guy, it was a 379 or a W9. He made a 4x4 framework that he could drive his truck under. He bought a parachute from the Army surplus, parachute like they would drop Jeeps from. And he just draped that over the 4x4 frame. And it made himself a temporary garage. And then you put a torpedo heater in there with kerosene with max mileage fuel-borne catalyst to make it burn clean. And you've got a decent place to work and keeps you out of the wind and the rain and the snow.
Yeah. Interesting.
What I used to do, because I didn't have a shop for the first couple years in this business. By the way, this is the beginning of our 49th year. December 1st was the beginning of the 49th year for us at Pittsburgh Fire, actually for me. So what I would do is I'd take Biz Queen or plastic. I'd take 2 pair of vice grips, put tape around the jaws so that they wouldn't mark, and we had a lot of the A model Kenworths, and then the 359 Pete's came, but I would clamp it on either the sun visor or the horns and didn't leave any marks. And then I would open the hood, and now we had the Biz Queen cover in the front, and then I'd put my little torpedo heater in there. But unfortunately, we didn't have max mileage at the time, so we did breathe in some fumes. But working under the Biz Queen wasn't so bad, because if it was a sunny day, it was pretty bright under there. And again, I didn't do engine rebuilds, but a lot of injectors and sometimes put heads on trucks underneath the Biz Queen.
Yeah, there you go.
And then I did a lot of road work. Pete Sharp and I used to go out on the road a lot. And then this one little garage, I walked in and there was 2 55-gallon drums. You lay one on its side, and then at the one end, you put a hole like 6 or 7 inches in diameter, and you put a sleeve going into the next one that is horizontal also. Now, you got to have something spacing these out. You've got to have some steel legs. And then out of the far end of the second one, the top one, goes your smokestack or your chimney. And you put a door on one end, and you have some louvers on it so you can allow oxygen in. And you just made a very economical wood burner out of 2 55-gallon drums. But what this guy did was unique. He saved his oil because he did his own oil changes, and he had another 55-gallon drum up on a workbench. And coming out of the bottom of it was a steel pipe that went into the bottom 55-gallon drum. And it was on an angle going down, and he had a quarter-turn valve up there so he could regulate the flow. And the dirty oil would go in and just drip onto the logs. And so instead of the logs burning up, the oil was burning up. And he could regulate the heat by turning the quarter-turn valve. And that was really slick.
That's pretty similar to the heaters we had in the Army. And I had two heater stories from the Army. So they looked like a beer keg almost in shape. That was kind of the burn chamber. They had a chimney thing that went on the top, and you could build chimney pipes all the way up to go out the top of a tent. And then they had a carburetor, and you would put on a 5-gallon can of kerosene, and it would flow down, and you would use the carburetor to regulate how much oil or kerosene would drip into there and burn. That's the way they worked. When we were out in the field for weeks at a time, every day when you did your pre-trip inspections on the helicopters, you had to take a fuel sample we had a valve at the bottom of the helicopter, and you'd take a fuel sample to look for water. You didn't want too much water in the fuel, so you had to check that every day. Well, we're out in the field, and now you've got this container full of jet fuel, and I didn't like pouring it on the ground. So I started going over and pouring mine into the tank for the heater. And I told somebody else about it, just that I was doing it. It wasn't any big deal. One night, we woke up, and it had to be 100 degrees inside the tent. And I looked over, and the entire stovepipe was glowing cherry red because everybody kept pouring their jet fuel into the tank, and it was burning a little hot. Then I had a time where go ahead,
Kevin. Your carburetor was too big.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
You needed to jet it down a little bit.
Yeah, that whole stovepipe was shooting flames out the top when you went outside. I mean, it was hot. Then we had a time where the helicopter I was in, we went down.
Now hold on, Harry. You're shooting flames out, and you're in a canvas tent.
Yes, exactly. And that whole stovepipe is glowing cherry red. Yeah, it was. Then we're trying to figure out.
What insulated the pipe from the canvas?
There was I'm going to say it was probably leather, like a patch where the pipe went through. It was designed for the pipe to go up through the top of the tent. I'm going to say it was probably leather or something. Yeah, we were lucky the whole tent didn't catch on fire.
Wow.
Then I had one where the helicopter I was in, we knew it. You always know it's not a problem. It's just a bad sensor. But we had low oil pressure somewhere, and it's almost always a sensor. But you have to shut down. You have to test it. I tested it. Sure enough, it was a sensor, but we couldn't get one. We were out in the field. We didn't have any with us. It's several hours back to Fort Lewis, but you have to go over the passes. And back then, the Cobras can't fly in bad weather. $40 million helicopter, and you can't fly in the rain because they weren't instrument rated. You had to have visual flight to be able to fly. So the pilot, I had to stay out in the field with the helicopter, and we thought it was going to be a couple hours and they'd be back. Well, the pilots flew over, got the part, but then the passes closed. So they decided to just spend the night. And in reality, it took them 3 days to get back to me. I ended up being out there with that helicopter for 3 days. So the first night, they come out with a truck and bring me a tent and sea rations to eat and water and a heater because it was wintertime. There was snow out there. We were out in Yakima. There was snow out there. So they bring me the heater, but it's brand new and it's still in the boxes. So I got to take this thing apart and put it together. And I get it all together, and I realize they didn't bring me the carburetor. So now I'm thinking, how am I going to get this thing to work? So I started by just pouring a little bit of fuel, kerosene, into the bottom and just lighting it. And it would work, but it would flame out, and it was hard to pour while it was still flaming because it would flame up on you. And so I had to wait till it would burn out, pour a little more in. And I thought, what am I going to do? I'm going to freeze tonight. Was getting down to like single digits. So luckily the range out there, when we're not using it, they lease it to the farmers, and the farmers use it for grazing. So I collected all the cow pies, packed it into the bottom, and then I could soak that with kerosene and light it, and it would burn for about an hour like that.
Yeah. So another thing you can do in that situation is old lubrifiners or hickory wood chips. They burn for hours in a wood stove, or regular full flow oil filters will also burn. And when they're finished, all you have is the outer tin can and a steel sleeve on the inside, and then you just stand on them, crush them, and throw them in the trash.
Yeah, that's
so if you had old oil filters, and the oil filters work well too.
Yeah,
and one thing I wanted to say is,
I had nothing with me but a helicopter.
If you have a wooden,
we were not very well prepared.
Another thing is, and I mentioned this before, do not throw diesel fuel on hot coals in a wood burner and close the door because it won't ignite. But in a few minutes, it will explode because you made a combustion chamber and you will have soot everywhere.
Oh, that's good advice.
And yeah, diesel fuel has to be thrown on a flame, not on hot coals. The stuff just does not burn. It's amazing it burns in a truck. All right. And then when we had a truck that sat outside and it was too cold and you couldn't get it started, we built a charcoal fire under the oil pan. And sometimes we would always save cardboard boxes and build a little framework around in case the wind was blowing, build a framework around the front end and tape the cardboard together to keep the wind so that the charcoal would heat the oil pan.
Okay.
And then another way, I was on a camping trip when my son was in Boy Scouts and they were out on some hike and I was going to take a nap in this tent and it was really cold. And I had, a Bernzomatic torch with me, just in case. I always carried a Bernzomatic torch in the wintertime, especially when you had a diesel vehicle. And I had an old cast iron. Remember the percolator coffee pots that our parents had?
Yeah.
Well, I had my mother's old percolator cast iron coffee pot. I heated that pot up as hot as I could get it with a Bernzomatic torch. I set it in that. It was a 2-man pup tent. I set it in that tent, crawled in a sleeping bag, and I was nice and warm for hours.
There you go. Good idea.
And something else that I do in Colorado in the winter, I always keep extra thermal wear under the back seat of the pickup truck. Matches, stuff to start fires. Go to Dollar General and buy packages of the crackers, the cheese crackers, because they last forever. Just to have stuff in case you slide off the road. And sometimes where we're going snowmobiling, there's not a lot of people around, and you just want to be ready for winter.
Bruce, here's the best, absolute best survival food to carry. Lasts forever. Doesn't need refrigeration. And when you do need food, the crackers aren't going to cut it. I mean, it's nice to have something better than nothing. What you need are sardines. Small tinned fish. Sardines, mackerel, tuna, salmon. Now that's going to get you through. That's what you need. It's small. Easy
I'd
to
rather
pack.
have your beef sticks.
Beef sticks are good too. Beef sticks are good too. You gotta have
And
meat.
we didn't have beef sticks years ago, right?
Right.
These beef sticks are pretty new to us through you.
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean, there were beef sticks. They just weren't this good. In fact, I have one on my desk right now. So,
Yeah.
also, went to return calls to 2 different owner operators this week. Both had their mailboxes were full, couldn't leave messages.
I know that's one of your pet
And
peeves.
I tried 3 times. I mean, I'm persistent. I tried 3 times. Some people, I try a 4th time and I finally get through, but that's not right. You need to empty that email.
There you go.
And then I was talking to an owner operator yesterday, and he was here in Florida, and he was sitting, waiting till 10 p.m. at some warehouse so he could drop off 3 pallets. He had to sit for like 6 or 7 hours to drop off 3 pallets. And I've heard horror stories to drop a pallet off. I don't know if it was Lowe's, Home Depot, or somebody like that. You've had to wait till 11 o'clock at night. I don't know why the trucking industry puts up with stuff like this from shippers and receivers, but that's not right to tie up a man and his piece of equipment for that kind of time to drop off a couple pallets.
You know, Bruce, we're talking about some of the reasons this has happened, the drop in rates, the conditions, stuff like this. See, my answer has always been, when I hear somebody say this, my question to them is, will you ever go back to that place again? And if it's a big chain, like you get screwed, at a Walmart, say, like that. Something really outrageous. I don't mean an hour here or there, but some of these outrageous stories like you're talking about. Will you commit? Don't ever go back to a Walmart DC again, because that's the only way this is going to stop. The problem is when you flood the entire market with people who can't speak English and shouldn't have a CDL at all, now if you don't go, it doesn't matter because they will. So that problem is going to get worse unless Trump actually is able to follow through and get rid of all these illegal CDLs. It's really making the whole industry a mess right now.
But we've had this way longer than this. Elegant.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. But back then, I would tell people,
not far from us.
Don't complain about this if you're going to keep going back to Walmart. Well, it's a good paying load. Well, then deal with it. Or refuse to go because it's the only thing that's going to change this. If they can get away with this, they will. And you keep letting them get away with this.
So several years ago, a friend of mine, they hauled minerals into the steel mills, and his name was Jay Banani from Belmont, PA. I really like this guy. He's retired a long time ago. And he was pulling a dump body for Tejon, and he's just sitting in Elegant at Ludlam, and they didn't know where they wanted these raw materials. And he gave them so many hours. And he would keep checking with him. He said, well, by this time, if you can't tell me where I'm going to drop this, and then he was there 4 or 5 or 6 hours. He said, I'm going to drop it right in your parking lot. And he ended up dropping it in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And I've heard guys with loads of pipe, nobody could decide where they wanted. They eventually pulled the stakes and let the pipes roll off. I mean, I don't know what shippers and receivers, and I've been on that side, right? I spent 7 years in that, and I never treated, I don't care if it was a company driver or an owner-operator, they were never treated like that where I worked. So, anyway.
I've told the most outrageous story I had like that, and I've told the story many times, but I haven't told it in a while. The big GM plant, not far from you, out there in Ohio. What was the name of that one?
Yeah, that was where they made the Vegas, the Lordstown plant.
Lordstown used to be one of my regular stops, and I would usually have something small. One little pallet with a part or something along those lines. Wasn't an everyday stop, but pretty regular. And it was all union. And they used to make me crazy with all the rules. Getting in there, finding the dock you're supposed to be at, finding somebody that actually wanted to work. It was always a hassle. And it didn't pay much because it was usually like one piece. And it would take me an hour from gate, in to gate out to get rid of it on a good day. And I might have 20 or 25 stops. So it made me crazy. But the worst, I get there one day and I've got a very small pallet, but it's heavy, like 400 or 500 pounds. And I finally get the guy on the tow motor to come in and get it. They just all take their time. They don't care. They all have an attitude. He goes up to the front of the trailer. It's my last stop and I need to go start picking up. And as he's backing out of the trailer, the bell goes off for their brake, and he stops the tow motor and gets off of it and walks out of the trailer. I almost lost my mind. That is just, you would have gotten out of the trailer faster if you would have just stayed on the tow motor. So that's just in your face kind of behavior. That really makes me crazy. So I told him, I said,
were the keys in the tow motor?
Yes, and that's what I told him. I said, if you leave that tow motor on there, you better take the key because I will unload this myself. And he said, oh, no, you won't. And he walked away. And I backed the tow motor off, closed the door. They stopped me at the gate. They had already called the carrier I was working for. It was a whole mess. And I said, I'm done. I'm never coming back to this place again. You will not put that freight on my trailer. Yeah. Unbelievable.
I think horrible. It's terrible. It's crazy. And it's been this way for a long time, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
My saying, And I've said this many times, as working Americans, if we all work together, we get through this life easier. And people just need to work together and help each other.
Yeah.
But as our callers call in, anybody that knows a way to make heat, to keep somebody warm in the northern hemisphere in the wintertime when they're trying to work on their truck, please give us a suggestion.
I have one. Have you ever tried all the base layer stuff? Under Armour was really kind of the first company, but the base layer clothing, have you ever worn any of that?
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah,
every time you ski and snowmobile, you
Yeah.
wear it.
The base layers are amazing. You get the really heavy duty.
I'm not-
Boy, those things will keep you really warm.
But I'm talking about trying to keep the truck warm and your tools warm while you're working on it.
Yeah. All right. Is that it?
Yeah, Andy just sent me something. Richard in AR oil sample previews. Oh, that's an oil
Yeah, it's an oil
notice.
sample
Okay.
to look at. Yeah. We'll get to that
Yeah,
one. That's our
that's for you
first
two
caller up
guys.
on the board. Yeah. All right, Bruce, you done?
I'm done.
I'm going to throw a quick one in. Again, this is for Wednesday. Almost all of my topics these days are health because we're learning a lot of new stuff. Some of this makes me crazy. And we'll talk about this more on Wednesday, but I'll give you a preview. Vitamin D levels. Bruce, do you supplement vitamin D?
I do not.
You need to. You need to supplement.
I'm not doing vitamin D now. I'm doing C and magnesium and my oils.
You need to supplement vitamin D. But here's how bad we screw this up. So the current recommendation on vitamin D supplementation by the WHO, we'll start with them, is 200. I'm going to simplify. It's 200 units. We'll just say units. They recommend 200 units a day to supplement. The U.S. says, oh, that's way too low. We recommend 600 units a day. Our recommendation and our supplement is 5,000 units a day. That's how far off they are. And that's what it takes to keep your vitamin D level. We've tested this over and over. It takes at least that much to keep your vitamin D level up around 80 or 100, where you'll notice a lot of difference. Turns out there's been some research that they have used up to 600,000 units for treating things like tuberculosis, rheumatoid arthritis, some other stuff. If you talk to a doctor, they'd say you would kill yourself with doses like that. So I'm going to be doing some reading, but it looks like the recommendations right now are 15 to 20 times too low.
So how much vitamin D do you take?
I do take 5,000 a day, 4,000 to 5,000. So I use the drops in my coffee every morning, and it's vitamin D K. If you're going to take a lot of D, you need to take K with it to balance it. So we have one that they're drops, and they're DK, and I just put them in my coffee. 4 drops is 4,000 units. 5 drops is 5,000 units. I go back and forth between the two. I may just go back to just 5 every day, because obviously it's not too high. They try to freak you out.
You put a lot of stuff in that coffee.
That coffee is...
You put a lot of stuff in your coffee.
I could live on that stuff.
Whew.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you take Shilajit?
I do.
Shilajit from the...
Shilajit.
Okay.
Shilajit.
Oh, is that how you pronounce it?
Lisa calls it she-shit.
And you take the liquid form?
Yes.
Are you taking the liquid form?
Yeah, it's like tar.
Are you taking the one that comes in a glass jar?
Yep. I did all the research on Shilajit about a year or so ago. I've been taking it ever since.
Shilajit. Boy, I wasn't even close.
You said it
All right, let
exactly
me see
like
if
I
you're
did.
taking the one by Shilajit.
Yeah, that's how I said it at first.
Well, look at Shilajit.
Yeah.
Are
Right.
you taking the one called N-A-Y, Naping, or P-I-N-Y. N-A-Y-P-I-N-Y.
Let me go look at mine real quick. We have it in the store. Let me go look at
Oh,
the
you do?
Yeah, we do. We started carrying it when I did. What's that? Shalaji? Ours is from, which one do we have in the store? Hi, I'm Kevin Rutherford. If you like this video, hit like and subscribe or leave a comment below. It really helps us get the show out to more people. If you'd like to get the show, the full show, ad-free, you can sign up with the link below.